Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Sarah Smith, and you're listening to Raw Intentions. Remember that episode I did outside? Well, I kind of feel like we're outside because I'm in my room right now, and I have my windows open, and I can still hear the birds, kind of feel the breeze, so feeling good. There's a lot happening today. There's a lot we need to go over today, so don't freak out. First of all, it is officially our 3-year anniversary of this podcast. Please insert applause here. I cannot believe that 3 years have gone by of me doing this podcast when I think about where I was in my life when I started it, who I was in my life, and who I am now, and the things that I'm moving through, and the life that I get to live, sitting here literally looking at the mountains from my house. And when I started this, I was recording in my basement bedroom in Denver, going through a really hard rejection, breakup situation with a boy, feeling really down on myself. I started this podcast. I was so nervous. I was so nervous of what people were going to think. I was so nervous of what people were going to say. And I did it. And now here we are. I recorded in studios. I am recording out of my bedroom now just because I selfishly don't want to drive to Denver to my studio and just want to freaking be at home. I've made so many new friends. I've made a whole new community really out of this podcast. I was talking to a friend last night and I was going back and forth in my head about something that I'm going to announce here in a moment. And they asked what were my favorite parts of podcasting. I mean, number one, it's just like a time capsule for myself. I get to look back on the things that I was going through like a journal almost, except I'm using the things that I'm going through to also try to help other people. And number two, it's been so cool to grow my own community. I think before starting this, I didn't really have an entrepreneurial, creative, influencer, business owner community in Colorado at all. And through my podcast, it gives me an avenue to kind of like start these conversations with people, satiate my curiosity and ask questions, and then become friends with the people that I interview, which that's been really amazing. Just the friendships and the people I can now lean on and depend on and ask questions in my own field and totally different fields, all because of this podcast. So, yes, I still don't make any money from the podcast, and that's, neither here nor there. That's not why I started it in the first place, but it has just been such a beautiful experience, and I'm so thankful for it. Happy third birthday. We've got a solo moment today. As you guys know, I'm taking a beat and just doing some solo podcasts. And I have some surprising news because I literally made this decision last night. I am actually going to take a break for a couple months. This is not a goodbye. I swear to God, I will never leave this podcast high and dry. Most podcasts, if not all podcasts, do season breaks. They have like season 1, season 2, season 3, and they take a few months off in between just to recoup. And I've never done that. I've never taken a Thursday off since I started 3 years ago. And I don't know if it was a pride thing, an OCD thing, or wanting to prove something to myself. There was also a big part of me that just didn't think I deserved it because I'm not super big, super famous podcaster. I see my friends Shannon and Anna Grace and The Toast and random, super popular podcasts with like cult followings, and they take months off all the time without even thinking anything about it. I just was always afraid that, if I took any time off, that when I came back, no one would be around to still listen. So I've kind of forced myself, even in times where I've experienced extreme burnout and stress, to get on the mic every week or have conversations with people, interview people. I remember running myself absolutely ragged before leaving for Southeast Asia for 2 months, recording podcasts so I could like batch a bunch of stuff and not have to worry about it while I was gone. And life has been lifing recently in the best way. I'm going through lots of transitions in my personal life, in my business, and really the main thing that I'm focusing on with business is abundance, and that is money. But obviously, community is still a huge part of our brand. We do small things to cultivate that every single day. I mean, I talk to y'all via DMs every single day. We still host events, meetups, all the things, but we got to have money to run a business. And this has been one of the hardest years of my business for sure. Money wise, probably rivaling COVID, whereas now we're a lot bigger. So there's more at stake. And that's just, it has to be my main focus. I have to focus on things in the business that are making us money. And like I said, unfortunately, this podcast is not one of them. And it's taking time away from me pouring into my business. I'm not paying myself at this moment. We're running so many ads. I'm like, taking myself to school in meta advertising and marketing and just doing so much stuff with that. And we're also trying to scale our team with pop-ups and do pop-ups all over in all these different cities, which also plays into our community piece. But we really just got to focus on that abundance. I want money to flow to me. And right now, my time is so precious and I don't have a ton of it. And I also don't want to resent this podcast. I don't want to feel burnt out on this podcast because when I'm sitting here talking to you guys or I'm doing an interview, It feels so aligned. I love it so much. But there are times that I freaking dread it. And when I made the decision last night to put the podcast on pause just for a few months, it was like a weight off my shoulders. Because I'm thinking, like, when the fuck am I going to have time to do all this? I'm moving in October, which is a whole nother thing. I'm trying to do all these different things with my business right now. I'm going back and forth to my storage unit. I'm hosting a closet sale. I'm prepping for another international trip. I'm also just living my life and spending the last few months in the mountains in this house with my roommates, trying to just soak it all up and be present. So yeah, I'm taking some time off. And how silly to kind of rid myself of that luxury just because I think that I'm not big and famous enough. Like, I deserve it just as much as the next person. I don't know why I've constructed that in my head. And that's just, a funny thing about being a human is, especially as an entrepreneur, just building all of these imaginary rules and walls around yourself at all times. And then remembering, I have free will. That's been a huge theme of my life recently. A little light bulb. Yes, I have free will. I can do whatever I want. So yeah, this is going to be the last episode for, I would say, a few months. I just need to take a few months and recoup and get some interviews going again, get some solo episodes and give myself a little break. I did that for myself when I was in Southeast Asia for work and I came back feeling so much better. And now the business is doing so much better. We're making money again. We're crushing and we have so many exciting things to come. I also have to focus on the launch of Rebellious Ski Club, which is coming very soon. And I really do think me taking the time off will make the podcast 20 million times better. Yes, that is a real metric. So, not a goodbye, and I'll see you later, as the cheesy saying goes. But I'm also saying all this as if like anyone gives a fuck. I don't even know if you guys will care. Hopefully you will. And I really have gotten so much amazing feedback on this podcast and it feels very aligned. I know it's something I'm supposed to be doing, which is why I am 100% without a doubt coming back to it. And the great thing is we have so many episodes you can catch up on that I've recorded over the last 3 years and guests and solo episodes. So we're going to continue to post on the Instagram and keep promoting all the episodes that we've done during the little interim. And then we'll come back better, sexier than ever. But today I'm really excited for the episode and I also feel rejuvenated for some reason knowing that it's going to be my last one for a while. I want to really leave it all out on the dance floor. I've been prepping for this for some time, just based on conversations I've had with other women in my life, with my boyfriend, with myself, and things that I've been moving through. I wanted to do another like big sister advice episode because those always hit and they always do really well. And I've niched them down to different things over the years. And I'll link some of the episodes that I'm going to be referring to because I have done like deep dives into different subjects like friendships and dating and singleness and rejection and loneliness and sex and dating advice, phone sex. I mean, I've talked about it all. And this time I want to come back to some of those subjects because especially after like the trips I hosted with all of these women, I had so many just like deep, meaningful conversations about different things that girls were going through. And, I live with 5 girls. And so we're always talking and sharing our feelings and thoughts and just hearing from you guys, from your Sunday scaries, from your DMs. I did a little Q&A a few weeks ago when I started the solo episode stint and asked you guys what you wanted me to talk about. So a lot of these subjects are also just coming from y'all asking me about them. So this is an episode of all the advice I would give you as my big sister persona that I seem to play online that people have given me time and time again that I'm very proud of. I love giving advice to all my little internet besties. I love giving advice to my friends and I love listening. I love learning and I love observing my own experiences and trying to use them to help other people. And of course, I say this every single week. I love hearing myself talk, which is why I have a podcast. So if you're asking me my 2 cents, I am going to give it. But when I think back to all the episodes I've recorded before, all the boys I've loved before, I think that's a show or something, I'm sure my opinions have changed. I've changed so much in the last 3 years. And so, yes, those episodes still exist. And I want to refer you to them because they are some of our most listened to podcasts, not to toot my own horn or anything. So I definitely think they're still worth the listen, but I've changed a lot since then. And so I'd like to just give a little refresher, share my what I hope is wisdom with you all. And before I get into the episode, I realized that I never introduced myself, which if this is your first time listening and this is also the last episode of this imaginary season that I made up, we're going to call it season 3 because 3 years. So like season 1, season 2, season 3 before season 4, then this is so crazy. But like I said earlier, you have so much to catch up on. So like we're good. But like I said in the intro, my name is Sarah Smith, Sarah with an H, Smith with a Y. I'm going to miss giving this little elevator pitch, guys. I am 30 years old, currently living in Breckenridge, Colorado from Madison, Alabama. I went to Auburn University and graduated with a rehab and disability major and a Spanish major in 2017, and was going to be an occupational therapist. Started making handmade jewelry in college out of my college apartment because I was so fucking broke and I needed freaking money, and was also waitressing at Texas Roadhouse. I've been a hustler since day one and just wasn't quite paying my non-existent bills. So I started making jewelry for my friends and my sorority sisters, and what started as just a little side hustle turned into a full-blown brand, which is my business, my baby, my everything. 9 years later, it's called Raw and Rebellious. That thing I was referring to earlier that I need to desperately make money with. It's at raw_rebellious on Instagram. Definitely give us a follow. We started with handmade jewelry, like I said, out of my college apartment that blossomed into wholesale, collabs, so many amazing opportunities, and was worn by like everyone in the Southeast, which is really cool. I did pop-ups, traveled around in my Forerunner, and went to like a billion different sororities. It was so much fun. And then I slowly stopped jewelry in the last 3-4 years. And now Raw and Rebellious is so much more than just a business, which is kind of been my dream from the very beginning. We now do clothing, we do hats, we do prints, we do shoes, we do my podcast, a YouTube channel, international hosted trips, retreats, ski meetups. I do custom merch for other small businesses and influencers and brands and collaborations. So it's really blossomed into its whole little universe, which has been really cool. Just like watching it grow as my baby. Obviously, I never went back to grad school for occupational therapy like I was supposed to. And this has just fulfilled me in so many ways, more than I could have expected, and forced me to grow in so many ways, which has just been so incredibly cool. Also, if you're watching, because I use this podcast as like my Finsta diary, I'm wearing a necklace. I've started getting into creating jewelry again, which, hint, hint, might be coming soon, but we don't really know. And if you guys like it, I'll sell it. If not, I'll just keep it for myself, which is kind of how I started making jewelry in the first place. You know, you got to come back to it, take a break. This is the theme, taking breaks. I took a break from jewelry and now I'm finding my way back because I was burnt out on it. You get it. Anyways, back to the podcast. So this elevator pitch is all over the place and this intro is all over the place. I do solo episodes. I have amazing guests on and we talk about everything under the sun. I didn't want to pigeonhole this podcast because I wanted it to just grow with me and take itself wherever it wanted to go. And you can follow the podcast at Raw Intentions Podcast on Instagram, where we post little snippets and shorts from all the episodes. And that's really my shtick. That's all I can think of because I'm so excited to get into the meat. Let's get into the main portion of this episode. Not me crying about ending it temporarily. So with the realms of advice, I've split it up into 3 categories: self, dating, relationship, rejection, and friendships. And then I'll close it out with a little Q&A based on the questions that you guys gave me. So let's start with the self, with selfishness, with being single, and your own personal journey through life. One of our first and most listened to episodes is Sexy Girls Are Selfish Girls. That is my motto. That is my mantra. I want it tattooed on my forehead. And it is one of our most popular episodes. And it is because we speak truth here. And selfishness gets a bad rap. I think being selfish is an incredible thing. Of course, there can be too much of any good thing, but the word selfish has such a negative connotation when truly, if you want to be selfless, if you want to be a good friend, a good partner, and also just like a good human being on this earth, you have to take care of yourself first. You have to learn how to say no so that you can say yes to things that are really special and important to you. You have to learn to fill your cup first so that you can then fill others' cups. You can't just continuously pour out of an empty cup and be like this selfless giving person. After a while, you're going to get burnt out. You're going to start resenting people and you're not going to know who you are or what you need in order to be happy and be fulfilled. And with selfishness comes solitude, which can be a very scary thing to people. I've talked about that so much in past episodes. I won't get into that too much other than just the blanket statement that it is very important to learn how to be alone and be happy alone. And I think another thing that comes with being very selfish, which is so sexy, is being in tune enough with yourself to even know the things that you like, to even know the things that you must do when you're feeling anxious or you're feeling overstimulated or you want some space. Like, where do you start? What are those tools? What are your needs? Which again, just comes from that introspection and the time spent alone in stillness. And it takes a lot of experimenting, which gets to come with selfishness too, because all of a sudden you have a ton of free time on your hands, experimenting with morning routines, nighttime rituals. Do I like to read? Do I like to watch movies? Do I like to watch reality TV? Do I like to crochet, knit? Do I want to find a new hobby? Do I like to go touch some grass? Do I like grounding in the morning? Do I like Meditating, do I hate meditating? There's so many things that you can do to make yourself feel better and so many ways that you can incorporate play into your day that can fulfill you, fill your cup, and then you can give to other people. And those are just a few things you can do to experiment with ways to fulfill your own needs, fulfill your sense of self, fill that imaginary cup, and then pour into others. If something that gives you detachment from selfishness is really wanting to be a good friend, a good partner, and finding identity in that, then it brings it all right back. And I also think if you find too much identity in the way that you're being perceived by others as a good friend, a good partner, then you have to find a sense of self outside of that because you can't define yourself based on what you think other people perceive of you. And if you spend your entire life just working to better that perception of other people, then you're going to go crazy because as you will learn time and time again, no one is really thinking about you that much. We're all just thinking about ourselves. So that is bullet point number 1. Bullet point number 2 is your singlehood. And this might sound a little jaded because I am no longer single, but I recorded a podcast about this when I was still single and kind of miserable about being single, to be completely honest. And I am still going to say the same shit that I said then. So please don't take this as like, oh, like, I don't know, I'm so out of it that I don't even remember what it's like. No, bitch, I was in the streets for the majority of my life, so I understand what it is like to be single, whether I loved it or I hated it, because I went through phases of both. I got you. And with your singleness, this is just a reminder that it is temporary. And I can actually speak on this now even better from the other side, the scary side, the whoa, I'm in a loving relationship now side. Your singleness is so fleeting. And I feel very lucky where I am in a relationship because of the way that I lived my single years. And there were a lot of them. And look, I want to validate first and foremost that being lonely and not wanting to be single is totally okay. It is not desperate. It is not pathetic. It is very valid and probably more common than people being like, oh my God, I want to be single forever. And that's also a very valid experience. If you don't want to be with someone or have a life partner, I think that that is totally fair and fine. And for me, it always came in waves. But what I always try to remember, and it comes back to that quote that I tell you guys like every solo episode I do, no one will ever wish they got married sooner. You're never going to meet a married person that's like, oh, fuck, I really wish that I married my person a couple years sooner than I did. If anything, they might wish that they waited a few years later and not gotten married so young because your life changes and your life shifts. And if I had $1 for every time a friend or a internet girl reaches out to me and says, oh my God, I'm so jealous of your life, then I would be a thousandaire. I would have at least $1,000 because that's how many people tell me that all the freaking time. Because your singleness equates autonomy, and autonomy is the thing that gets me the most horny on this planet. It is your decision every single day to wake up and do whatever you want and to dress however you want and to talk to whoever you want and to hook up with whoever you want and to spend your time doing whatever you want, which is the most precious thing of all, and to really just like craft and hone in on who you want to be. There have been so many times in my single years that I've been hooking up with random guys or trying to make something work with a guy that just they didn't give a fuck about me and it didn't work out. And I took it really hard at the time. And when I look back, and this is the beauty of journaling, you can really see where you were at different times in your life. I look back at those times and I hated myself. I was so insecure. I didn't like my body. I was in the thralls of an eating disorder while also a coping mechanism of like getting fake eyelashes and hair extensions and buying new clothes just to like make myself feel confident. And I didn't respect myself. I was going for guys that did not respect me, that did not give a fuck if I got hit by a bus tomorrow. And me putting that out into the universe and showing the universe like, yo, I don't respect myself. I don't give a fuck. That's the kind of guys I was getting. And look, that's totally fine. I was not ready for a relationship yet anyway, but these single years used to like perfect yourself to make you the most insanely amazing, wanted, attainable, confident version of yourself. When we go back to the sex episodes and the dating episodes that I did, where I pulled all of my best guy friends and a bunch of random guys on the internet, and I said, what do you notice about a girl at a bar? What makes a girl the sexiest? All the sex questions, everything. So many guys say they can tell when a girl is confident or when she is not. And yes, we do get a lot of confidence from male validation if we're straight, and that is super unfortunate. But I definitely relate to that when I'm feeling down on myself or feeling lonely or just like not good about myself physically. When a guy's hitting on me at the bar, even if I'm not interested in him or he's trying to buy me a drink, I'm like, okay, this makes me feel a little better about myself. At least someone in this freaking world wants me. And speaking of that, if you are single right now and you're listening to this and you don't want to be, I promise you, you could be in a relationship. You could be married if you wanted to be. You would probably be settling. You wouldn't be with your person. But there are a lot of people that I know that are currently married to the person that I know for a fact they are not supposed to be with. They are not with their soulmate because they didn't hold out. They didn't wait. They settled and they wanted to start the life that they thought that they were supposed to start. And now they're just like trapped with this person until inevitably one of them cheats on each other or they just live a very unhappy life. And you don't want to be that. Never ever settle. It is not worth settling. And I think it's important to hold space for every version of yourself, for the empowered single version of yourself that fucking loves being single, loves focusing on their friendships, and loves to just go out and shake ass and feel good about themselves, and the other version of ourselves that I've been the girl who, my roommate's boyfriend is over and I'm sitting in my room crying, journaling that like, I want to meet someone so bad. I want to meet someone so bad. And understand, like I said earlier, that not only is your singleness temporary, those feelings of loneliness are temporary too. And it could also be rooted in something deeper. And maybe there's something that you feel like is missing from your life that you have yet to provide for yourself. And I think going into a relationship, into a healthy relationship, being okay with who you are and being okay alone will make you such a better partner in the long run. And another thing, back to validating, like that singleness can be really shitty sometimes. I mean this empowering, not demeaning. Like, it's okay if you hate being single. I just want to encourage you to try to get to a point where you are not using your singleness as like sitting in a waiting room, waiting for your life to start, waiting to meet that person. I want you to use your singleness to grab life by the fucking balls and do something about it. Do everything that you want to do, because you have no idea when that person is going to walk into your life. And then your life will change. You will start making sacrifices for that person and you will start melding your life together with someone. So while you have that freedom, use it. And back to the validating it being negative thing, I fucking hate when people try to tell you, if you're feeling lonely and you're craving love from, or a romantic partner, a guy, a girl, whoever, and they're like, oh, but you have so many like amazing people that love you and your family and your friends and whatever. That's so fucking bullshit and like is so demeaning to me. Like, allow yourself to crave love if that's the space that you're in, and don't let people like talk you down from your desires, because it is very natural and they were probably there at some point too, or they've been in a relationship for so long and they just don't even remember what it's like to be in your spot. So please ignore those fuckers. We hate them. Okay, singleness. Done. We understand now. We all are on the same page. Another piece of self-advice. I just kind of like made a list of things that I wanted to talk about. My next little tick in my notes of advice for self, and all of these things are kind of building on each other, is manifestation and living in alignment. We've also done lots of episodes on manifesting and, creating a life that is in alignment with your highest self, which is very important and comes with all the things I talked about earlier, with stillness and selfishness and taking time to yourself and figuring out what it is that fulfills you and lights you up, and figuring out what brings you closer to living in alignment. And manifesting, like I've talked about in the past, is just truly believing that everything you want is yours. It's about visualizing the things that you want. It's about taking the time to write down the things that you want as if you already have them. It's about using your words in your mind as if they're your actual reality. Don't speak negatively about yourself. Don't speak negatively to others. My best example of this is me for the last like probably 3-4 years have truly adopted the I am the luckiest girl in the world mantra. That is like, I live it, I breathe it, I say it all the time. Anyone that knows me and is close to me, like, probably gets annoyed with how much I say it. And even to my boyfriend, I'm like, my luck will like, go to you. Like he on his business deals, he'll put my birthday on it, and he gets POs, like orders for his company all the fucking time because he put my name on it. And I'm like, well, that makes sense because I'm the luckiest girl in the world. You have to just believe it and own it, so all of the things that you want in life can come true, because the universe is conspiring for you if you take the time to notice and if you take the time to let it. And it's like the most beautiful thing in the world. And practicing gratitude and all the things that people yap about all the time on social media, unfortunately, really do hold so much weight. And I would encourage you, if you feel like you are unlucky. I had a conversation with a girl whenever I was traveling, and she was just talking about how she's like the unluckiest person in the world. Everything bad always happens to her. And I texted her later on and I was like, hey, I was actually thinking about what you said, and I want you to try to flip that narrative for yourself. Because if you are saying and speaking out that you are unlucky, or negative things are going to happen to you, or you're poor, or you're unlovable, or you hate yourself, then that's the kind of energy you're going to put out. And that's the kind of energy you are going to bring back into yourself. Back to what we were talking about with the confidence. So many guys said that the first thing that they notice about a girl is their confidence. It's just in the way that they carry themselves, in the way that they speak. And that's just your energy. Your energy is so contagious, and the way that you think about yourself and the way that you're projecting it out of you is how it's going to return to you and how people are going to perceive you, whether they're conscious of it or not. And I've done so many episodes about manifesting, so I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of it today, but I would really encourage you in manifesting, praying, it's all the same fucking thing. Having something that you believe in, and whether that's yourself, whether that's God, whether that's Jesus, whether that's the grass outside, anything can hold power if you believe. I mean, all that you have control of is your perception of your reality, and we all perceive it so differently. So perceive it however you want and make it fun and make it positive for yourself. And practicing positive thinking and positive action, there's nothing to lose. You can feel silly. You can maybe have a more bright and shiny outlook on life. You can maybe be a little bit obnoxious with how optimistic you are about things, and it could feel like a silly game at first, but if it's something that you practice and practice, you'll just start to see your world that way. And that's how I've completely shifted my perspective on life and on myself, saying that I'm the luckiest girl in the world. I truly believe that. Good things just happen for me. They happen to me. If a negative thing happens to me, unless I'm in a really fucking shitty mood, I don't even notice that it's happening because I'm already in this space of like, only good things happen to me. I practice gratitude every morning. I do breath work. I do meditation to put me in a place to only notice the good things that are happening for me in my day. And it changes your life. It really does. And the small moments are the most important. That's what makes up our days. That's what makes up our life. So I really encourage you to try that. And along with manifestation, I was talking to another friend about this recently. Something really important with that, and I think with life, is just being less attached to the outcome. And what that means is, if let's say you're manifesting a house and you're visualizing and you're vision boarding and you're doing all of the things, I think it's very important to get very specific about what you want, but don't let it lead you to being closed-minded. Don't let it lead you to only seeing and having tunnel vision for this specific house and then missing like amazing, perfect opportunities that were actually meant for you and that are probably even better for you than this like house that you've been picturing in your head and journaling about in your diary. And practicing detachment and just having detachment from the outcome lets the universe work for you even more, because the universe, God, whatever, knows what you need and what you want. And sometimes it takes us a second to catch up to that. And I even think that that's true in dating. If we're too attached to, oh, like this guy is my type or this guy isn't my type, or I'm not going to give him a chance because he is 5'10", which I am guilty of that, sorry, then you're missing out on these incredible connections and these incredible people because you're so close-minded and attached to the outcome, which is like you visualizing this like brunette 6'5" guy that works in finance and has blue eyes. Now I'm just thinking about that TikTok song that was going viral a few months ago. But yeah, just detaching from the outcome and letting the universe work its magic is always going to get you into the best outcome that you were meant for anyway. And all of these things just play into tapping more into our bodies, creating that stillness and creating those routines where we're diving deeper into our sense of self and into our mind and feeling our breath and practicing meditation and putting our hand over our heart if we're feeling anxious, and just like knowing that your body needs to take a beat. Similarly with me taking a break from this podcast, hate to bring it up again, but I just sense that I need a break and I'm tapping into that and I'm accepting that for myself because I have created that trust and that intuition with my own body. And when I think about even this podcast and what it's taught me with all the guests that I've had on, we've talked a lot on the podcast about seed cycling, about your cycle. And that was something that I knew literally nothing about before starting this podcast. I thought I had a period. I knew I ovulated at some point. And anytime I had a pregnancy scare, I Googled, when can you get pregnant? Because I never fucking remembered when I could get pregnant, which is embarrassing. Like I should know that stuff. I knew nothing about the follicular phase or the luteal phase or anything like that. And after talking to my friend Kate, who's on this podcast, and learning the importance of seed cycling and syncing your workouts to your cycle and just what the phases of your cycle even are and mean, it allowed me to give my body so much grace. And that's something that I really want to work on when I live with Patrick and I'm not as chaotic living with 5 girls and just like living this insane life, is eating intuitively, where I'm eating with my cycle, I'm working out with my cycle, I'm even making business decisions and like shaping my responsibilities with my cycle when I have more space and more like, I guess, like free time and like downtime, because it just can be the most empowering thing. And that's the same with intuitive eating. That's something that people yapped at me for years. And I've done another episode. This is like a summary of all the episodes. I did an episode about my eating disorder back when I was like right out of college that I'd honestly been building for a really, really long time. I had something called nighttime eating. I was basically just starving myself, binging on the weekends, blacking out every weekend. It was a whole thing and it was really bad. And I never looked worse. I was like such an inflamed, insecure, like lonely version of myself when I look back on it, which that's a whole nother episode. And I think you should definitely listen to that if that's something that you feel like you're struggling with. But intuitive eating is something that's been so cool to tap into because, again, all of these things culminate. I'm so much more in tune with my own body to like hear it when it wants something or when it does it, when it wants something sweet or savory, or like even back to my menstrual cycle. There are certain times in the month that I am fucking starving. And there are certain times in the month that I don't really have an appetite, and just listening to my body instead of like trying to eat the same thing mechanically every single day has served me so much better and happier. Like I'm not thinking about or like obsessing over the things that I'm eating or feeling guilt over eating too much or too little. I'm just feeding myself, and it's been such a beautiful place to get to. So the selfishness, the taking advantage of your singleness, your single era, tapping into your bodies, just becoming more aware of the things that you need and the things that you want will make you live the best life possible. And if you're listening to this and you're in a relationship and you feel like you need to spend more time alone or tap more into that like single version of yourself to catch up with yourself and learn more, that's totally fair too, to take some time and spend. I'm not saying like ditch your husband or your boyfriend and go on a European vacay for a month and fuck a bunch of guys. I'm just saying it's okay to like need some alone time or crave that and like start, implementing meditations in the morning or going on a walk in the morning by yourself or whatever it is that you need to do, even small things just to feel like yourself and feel in your own body is really important. And I think having that independence in a relationship can also make the relationship more healthy. Okay, sorry, I had to cut because my roommate got home and I chatted with her for a little bit, and I just have this crippling fear of my roommates hearing me podcast. So I took a quick pause and bathroom break, but now I'm back. But as I was saying, just things that have been on my own mind that I've been going through. So one of those things that are very prevalent, I feel like as we move through our 20s and into our 30s and through our 30s, is this feeling that we're too old either to be doing things or that we should be doing things that we're not. And that's something that I struggle with all the time, even still, feeling behind because all I see are all my other friends doing so many different things, as I'm sure people look at me and see me doing different things and what they're doing. And it just makes me feel weird. It makes me feel behind, or it just makes me feel super old, especially me going and doing this backpacking again. I haven't done long backpacking stints since I was 28, I think. And even then, I remember freaking out that I was too old. And being 30 and staying in hostels and stuff, I don't know. I was like, what if it's all 18-year-olds and people think I'm like this weird grandma for being there because I'm not 29 anymore. I'm 30. Ooh, so scary. And that could not be farther from the truth. That is such a lie that we tell ourselves, that we are too old to do something, too old to start something, or that we're behind because of our age. Our age does not define us. And I think we're so used to using metrics growing up and in school to compare. We're like, okay, we're all kind of like going through the same things, like on the same path in the same grade, taking similar classes and just like experiencing life together. And then we graduate and it's just a shit show and everyone's doing so many different things. So please don't ever have those thoughts. And if you do, give them space, understand where they're coming from, and let them on their merry way, because I promise they hold no validity. And as far as being okay with your timing and trusting your timing, that is just a practice. Like everything else, you have to recognize those emotions of yearning for something that you don't have, comparing yourself, feeling jealousy, or feeling like insecure about your age, and giving them space, understanding where they're coming from, and then letting them pass and continue on. And it'll just allow you to live the best life possible. And that's something that I've really been dialing into lately. And I mentioned this earlier, is just the concept of free will, that you can uproot your life, you can switch your jobs, you can change your names, you can break up with your boyfriend or divorce your husband or wife and start fresh, start a new career, do literally whatever the fuck you want at any point in time. And I think from being in such a place of routine, because my life can also be so chaotic, I forget that I can just do that at any time. And sometimes I definitely use my routine as a crutch and I just hone in on it and focus on it. And yeah, I've just been really tapping into free will a lot. And this is your reminder that you have free will to do literally anything you want at any time, always, 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 always. And then another quote that's really stuck with me, and this will play into the long distance conversation that I will have later with you guys. I read this on TikTok or something, and it was a video with a quote, "I want to build a life that I don't need a vacation from." And I've talked about it in therapy. I've talked to my friends about it. I've talked to my boyfriend about it. And I think that perfectly encompasses the life that I dream of, the life that I crave so deeply, after living in this place and after seeing so much of the world and living a life that sometimes feels like a vacation. I am not the type of person that like lives for their next vacation. And yes, I do travel a lot and I feel very lucky to do so as part of my job as well. But I've never been, I was, when I lived in Atlanta, I was a person that was like constantly on planes, constantly wanting to get out of town and hated coming home, absolutely hated coming home, and was just like living for the weekend, living for the next vacation. And the life that I've created in Breckenridge and also just in Colorado in general is a life that I'm so proud of, that even if I was like broke and had to just sit in the house all day, but I had this surrounding me and things that I could drive to and things that I could do for free, I would be so fulfilled and I would be so happy. And I think that's put a lot into perspective for me, because being in a serious relationship now, we're talking about our future and what we want. And I'll get into that more later. But having the perspective as I've traveled so much, especially on this last stint in Southeast Asia, something that I was really pondering was just the importance of family and then the importance of life and where everything falls into the balance because, family is everything. And in so many cultures, you see multi-generational homes, you see such a respect for elders in the family, sometimes as religious figures. And people are just way more like close knit and they don't move away. So there's that one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is that you only have one life. So why spend it living a life that you are not obsessed with, that you need a vacation from, or that you dread or just kind of like put up with? And that's just not the kind of person I am. And I think that's been this like back and forth. And again, I'll get into this more when I talk about the dating stuff, but that's something that my boyfriend and I have been moving through is, where we're going to live and where we're going to start our lives together. And we've built these completely separate lives in two completely separate places. And we're just trying to figure out how to like bring that together. And I think that's the side of the coin that I continue to land on, is that I don't want a life that I need a vacation from. I want an amazing life that I wake up every single day so excited about, and never something that I just feel like I have to endure or put up with or wish the time away and count down the days until like my next trip. I'm going on a trip to Italy in a few weeks, and I'm so stoked for that trip to Italy, but I'm also so stoked for tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and going camping this weekend with my friends and going to a concert the following weekend at Dillon Amphitheater overlooking the mountains and a lake and all of the beauty surrounding us. And so that's something that I really tapped into recently, just as my values continue to shift and grow and like define themselves, to decide what I want with my life in the future, is that I want to build a life that I don't need a vacation from. That's just that. And the last thing when we're talking about self and all the advice, and this kind of goes into the friendship portion of the podcast, is an idea from Stoicism, which is like a whole philosophy in itself that you can look into if you're interested at all. And it is from an author in the Stoicism world. I believe Robert Greene is where I read this, and it really resonated with me. And it was, stop taking things personally. It's not about you. It doesn't affect you. It's not the thing that upsets us. It's our opinion about those things. You decide if something said to you is rude or harmful or against you or meant to hurt you, because that's all we can control, right? All we can control is our perception. And I actually dealt with this yesterday. A friend said something to me that just like felt very pointed and slighted, and it pissed me off. And then I really thought about it and I was like, okay, wait. And this is how I always think about situations like this. And it's a muscle you have to work, it's practice, but it really does help. I'm like, okay, well, what are they going through right now that would make them say a thing like that? What are they insecure about, and what are they jealous of in my life that is making them lash out at me this way? And that's kind of also like a fuck you to anyone that's ever rude to you, is what's wrong with you? Like, what are you going through? And why are you so obsessed with me that you are seeing this thing that I am excelling at or that I'm so happy with, and you are choosing to nitpick it and say something negative? Because that's another thing I always think about, is what was your intention with what you said to me? If you said something that made me not feel so good, it's probably because the thing that you were saying was meant to be mean. You weren't trying to be nice to me, right? And that's something that I always think of too. So yeah, it's kind of like a fuck you to whoever is, saying something rude to you, is like, okay, well, I'm actually going to turn it around on you. I know nothing's wrong with me. So what is it that you are so insecure about that you feel the need to like outwardly be a bully, right? So I just really liked that quote, and I thought it really played into this whole idea of control what you can control, what is within my control, what is out of my control, etc., and so forth. And that brings us to our next chapter on friendships in adulthood, because I think this ideal also really pertains to that. And I have so much experience with this. I've always had roommates. I've never lived alone. I've lived in so many different dynamics, had so many different kinds of friendships. And that is also something that I see is such a pain point with so many women. I mean, there's so many different variations of friendships. There are so many hard things and beautiful things about them. There are, situations where you're growing apart from a childhood friend, where you feel like you're not, loved in current friendships that you have, or that you're being taken advantage of, or where you're struggling to make new friends. So we're going to give all the advice and we're going to break all this down because I think this is something that a lot of people are going through and struggling with. And back to what I was just saying about the rude and hurtful things, people sometimes react out of parts. Sometimes they don't react out of the whole being and experience of who they are. And that's something that I'm actually learning in therapy, that when we are hurt or when we are scared or when we're angry or where something about us feels threatened, we will react from these like very small experiences or small portions of ourselves that can come off in a really negative way that isn't really a full representation of who we are as a whole. And so that's what that situation can be that I was just talking about, a friend saying something very pointed and honestly just fucking rude to me. And this plays back to an article I read a few years ago talking about how this generation, our generation, is very quick, not only the cancel culture with like celebrities and stuff, but also to cancel our friends, to write people off very quickly. And I think there's a fine line. I've reacted from parts and I've said hurtful things to friends, and I know that I have. And I don't think that that makes me a terrible friend. I don't think that makes me a terrible person. I think that I was just going through something and wasn't operating in my highest self or using tools with emotional regulation to not take that out on other people. But I don't think that necessarily makes someone a bad friend. What I think makes someone a bad friend is if you're leaving situations and you're feeling drained, if you're feeling like the second you walk out of a room, the girls are going to talk about you behind your back, if you feel like you're constantly having to impress or prove yourself to these women that you call your quote unquote friends, or they're constantly judging you or bringing you down, or again, saying things with the intent to hurt you, and that's like a very constant thing, because there's a difference between being like fun and sarcastic and poking fun, but it being rooted in love versus being rooted in I want you to feel bad about yourself, or I'm actually going to attack you in the places that I know hurt the most. And that makes a bad friend. And that's something that's really tough to swallow, and you want to save those friendships. And it is our instinct for anything good or anything that feels good to come into our life to hold on to it for as long as we can. Sometimes you got to let those friendships go, and that doesn't necessarily have to be like a dramatic breakup. It could just be slowly distancing yourself from those people or that person. But that's something to really think about, because your time is so precious, your selfishness is so precious, like I said. And the older you get, the less time that you have for the people that you actually do care about, that do treat you really well. So you don't want to waste your time with bad friends in your life. And it also just drains you and runs your social battery dry and just kind of makes you feel shitty about yourself. So there's no room for that. But then you're probably thinking, Sarah, okay, if I drop these friends and I don't have any friends, or how do I make adult friendships in life? And I want you to know that is something that everyone is craving. And that is something that I learned from having a large following and from talking to so many women so often and from hosting these international trips. The core reason that these random strangers decided to go across the world with me to Bali with this other random group of strangers was because they wanted to make community and they wanted to make friends and they wanted to find like-minded women to spend time with. And that is something that everyone's craving. There's nothing cringy or lame or lonely about it. That is just like who we are as humans. We want connection. And I think that's perfectly okay. And the deeper that we dive into that self exploration and into that journey of self, the more we get to know ourselves. And then unfortunately, the more we realize that, oh shit, these people that I have in my life maybe aren't aligning with me in the way that I think that they are, or that I need them to be. They're holding me back, or they're just not propelling me forward. They're just kind of stagnant. And I think relationships and your best relationships should propel you forward, should make you a better version of yourself. And you should admire them. You should learn from them, and you should not idolize them, but like you should put them on a pedestal because they're just so amazing and so great. And you feel so lucky to have them in your life. And I think as you get older, you'll find that a lot of the best friendships are the mutually least demanding friendships, the friendships that you don't feel forced to like spend so much time cultivating. Once you have it, you can let it idle and let it be because this other person has so much going on too. And you guys can come together and spend time together without there being like any guilt if it's been a while since you've seen each other, because those friendships I definitely struggle with. And of course, like any relationship, friendships can be 40, 60, 50, 50, 80, 20. Your friends are going to go through things and lean on you. And I think that that makes you an incredible friend to be there for them. But there's a difference between that paradigm kind of shifting and having someone that is incredibly needy, is take, 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 take. And when you get to a certain point of your self-actualization journey and you're feeling, at a certain level, if your friends aren't meeting you at that level, it gets kind of hard to continue that relationship. So I think that's another almost red flag in friendships, is someone that you feel like you almost feel guilt if you don't hang out with them enough because they like need you so badly. And that's just like a constant thing and a constant dynamic. And meeting friends in adulthood, I've always found to be pretty easy for me, which I feel very lucky to have had that experience. And I've moved a lot and always found community. And I honestly think, I mean, of course, I am very social and I'm very outgoing, but I think a huge part of that is me practicing putting my ego aside in social situations and not overthinking or thinking as much of what is this person going to think if I walk up to them and say hi, or are they going to want to hang out with me, or am I going to be a nuisance to them or whatever, like thinking less and just like getting out of my comfort zone and acting more. And there's so many avenues now. I mean, of course, there's like friendship apps, like dating apps, like Bumble BFF and stuff where you can meet people online, but there's also so many clubs and organizations and walk clubs, run clubs, single, mingle, bar crawl things, events, and like new hobbies and things you could start. You could start taking pottery classes. You could join a new gym that does classes so that you're like seeing the same people often. You can go work at coffee shops and like approach people in the wild, which sounds scary, but really is not that bad. You can strike up a conversation with your bartender. If you're feeling unfulfilled with work and you're remote and you're in a new place, you could get a side hustle. You could start working at a bar or a restaurant, and that's, a social job to get you to make friends. You can also ask other friends, like if you have friends from your hometown or you post on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, like, hey, I'm moving somewhere, and this more pertains to if you're moving to a new place and don't know anyone. Hey, I'm moving to Denver and I don't know anyone. If you have any friends, please hit me up, and you'll get coffee or drinks or hang out with someone. And, maybe a friendship will blossom from there. You can meet their friends and grow community. Also going on trips. There's so many opportunities, obviously, with me. And I do, my hosted trips, which I love doing so much, but there's so much out there. Group trips, group travel, where you can meet other like-minded women and like-minded individuals through a shared activity. And that just takes so much pressure away because you're doing something fun and you're doing something together. And I touched on the ego part, which I think is a huge thing that you must let go of in order to meet people. But I also think just being okay with hobbies being just for fun, like not having to be the best at everything you try, willing to try new things and also put that ego aside in those situations will just allow you to have so much more fun and allow you to meet so many more people. And once you open yourself up to that and open yourself to just like calling things your hobby without you actually being good at it and having just fun, you'll meet so many other people doing that and wanting that, playful kind of energy, or, love working out like you do because you meet them at the gym. And when you meet people at those shared activities, then you just share that common interest. And there's so much you can bounce off of from that, which we love. And we're going to get into dating in a second. And I guess I'm just talking more of like if you move to a new city, but also if you're just wanting to meet new people. When I lived in Atlanta, I almost knew so many people that I felt stifled because I loved my friends so much, but I also craved like new connections. And I felt like I wasn't really getting that because I was always hanging out with the same people. So I think, if you're in your hometown and you want to make new friends as well, or you're single and you're tired of like third wheeling with everyone, dating apps are such a great way, not only to meet that person and like have a romantic connection or a one night stand, but also just to meet their friends. Like maybe the date doesn't work out and like you guys aren't actually attracted to each other, but then he invites you to go to a concert with him and a few of his friends. And then you meet his friends and then you guys all start hanging out and it's like this fun, casual thing. So dating can also be a really great way to meet new people in the town that you live in or in a new place. And yes, making new friends is incredible, but I think just as important as shiny new friends is maintaining those beautiful friendships that you've had for so long. That's something that I feel like post-college is a hard transition because we're used to having all of our people so close. And I think it's just important to remember as you move through life, everyone is fucking busy. You are not special, I promise. Is to be intentional with your friendships. I literally put catching up with friends on my to-do list and I write down friends that I want to try to call and catch up with that week. It is so silly to think about. I've done Google Meets with friends because we're so busy that we're like, okay, we have to get a time on the calendar so we can actually catch up because lives do get chaotic. And it's the end of the day. Once I'm done recording this podcast, I'm not going to go, whoa, I just glanced at the clock and it's August 5th, 5:55 p.m. Whoa, crazy. Sorry. After I record this podcast, I'm going to be exhausted. I'm not going to want to call and catch up with a friend for 2 hours. So I have to like be intentional about it and make sure that I'm reaching out to them. The phone works both ways. You don't have to be the only one reaching out, visiting each other and making trips, doing like a yearly trip with your friends. I think it's really important to also cultivate and pour love into the friendships that you already do have because they're there for a reason and they're special. And lastly, before we transition into dating, is living with roommates. I live with 5 girls. I'm 30 years old, and that feels like such a crazy statement to make because I'm from the South and most of my friends are already married with kids or they're trying for children as we speak. And I feel like there's so much beauty in the way that my life has turned out. And I'm so proud of that. And I'm so happy to still live with roommates. And don't get me wrong, we have roommate fights. We get annoyed with each other. It's 5 girls living in a house. Like, of course, it's not all sunshine and roses, but for the most part, it has been such a beautiful experience. And I got in this argument with one of my other oldest friends on this planet. She was trying to convince me that it was really important for me to live alone before I lived with my boyfriend. And I just called her on such bullshit. And so many people talk about living alone as such a pivotal experience. And of course, to each their own. But I also have an argument for sticking with roommates instead of forcing yourself to live alone, unless that's something you want to do and you feel like you're ready and you want to spend $2,000 a month on your studio apartment. That is totally fine. But I think there's so much growth in living amongst other people for as long as you can. When you're married, when you're living with a boy, like a lot of that time when I'm moving with my boyfriend, like I'm going to be by myself. He's going to be at work or he's out of town or I'm just doing my own thing because there's just the two of us. And I am so excited for that chapter and I feel ready for that when it comes in a few months because I've lived with girls for so long and I've lived this time of my life to the fullest extent. And I truly feel like it's just bonus years at this point that I'm getting to do this. Also, many of my friends are moving into different chapters of their life. And to me, that is similar to being alone. And granted, I do spend a lot of time alone. And I think if you cannot spend time alone, then sure, it probably is important for you to live by yourself at some point. But it's also okay if you don't want to. I think you can find that solitude and find that self-exploration and like self-reliance in so many other ways than forcing yourself to live by yourself if that doesn't align with you. And I also think about like all the memories that I've made always having roommates. I will never remember the time that I sat at home by myself reading a book and like doing a face mask and going to bed early and like spending alone time. Like I do work that time in and I'm probably the roommate that needs the most alone time out of all 5 of us because I love sitting in my room and getting cozy and being in my space. But you're never going to get this time back. You're never going to have roommates ever again. You're never going to have a million closets to choose from. You're never going to have a girl peeking your head and asking what we're wearing tonight or making you an Aperol spritz and handing it to you while you're doing your makeup. You're just never going to experience that again when you live with a boy. And I'm totally in the camp of just like live with girls and live with roommates and have fun as long as you can because I feel like I was so preached out like when I turned a certain age, I like, why am I still living with roommates? I should be living by myself. It's like, no, fuck that. Number one, I don't want to spend the money. I do not ever want to be house poor where I'm just like throwing my money away on a over $2,000 a month, apartment just to say that I live alone. It also just doesn't align with me. I am so thankful for these times because I will never wish, I will never want. I will look back on and smile on all the times that I've had with all my girlfriends and I will continue to prioritize friendships in my life forever. But I'm also like ready now in this next stage of my life to move in with a boy and to do that whole thing because I've done all this and I've lived in a frat house for like 3 years and counting now. And I'm like ready for the next chapter, but I think it's because I've lived my life this way. So that's just my personal opinion there. Okay, the last portion before we get to the questions, which I feel like I've honestly answered a lot of the questions in this podcast, so I'll only do a few at the end. But also, we're gonna make this podcast long because it's the last one for a while. So, yeah, just savor my voice. Okay. Okay, so now we're talking dating, relationships, and rejection, advice, validity, all the things. First, I want to acknowledge that I am straight. I have never hooked up with a woman. I've never dated a woman. So my advice may sound one-sided, but it is only because it is my only personal experience. So I apologize for that, but this could be applied, I'm sure, in any realm. But dating is so fucking confusing. There are so many avenues to meet people, and this influx of options is just so overwhelming. I remember I used to get scared that I'd always wonder if there was someone better out there for me, like looking over the shoulder of the current guy I was dating and looking around the bar to see if there was someone hotter. And of course, when I've dated people, I've never done that. I've never cheated. I've only been cheated on. And when you're with the right person, you don't wonder what if. And if you do wonder what if, which it's okay, then you realize when you're looking at the person that you're dating that this person is so perfectly, imperfectly themselves. And with all of their quirks and life experiences and ways about them, they just fit you so perfectly. And there's no way to replicate that in another human. I'm convinced. Like soulmates exist 100%, even if they come in packages that you absolutely do not expect, like a guy from Birmingham, Alabama. For me, it's, without a doubt, the person that I am meant to spend the rest of my life with. And I think that once you meet that person, you won't wonder anymore what else is out there because that was always a fear of mine. And I think another thing that I've noticed with relationships and with myself when I've been in the wrong relationships versus the right one. Especially when I'm in the wrong relationship, I find myself comparing my own relationship and just observing and looking at other couples and thinking like, oh, this is nice. Like, oh man, I wish I had that. And I always really admired before when I was in really bad relationships, the security and pride in other people's relationships and like the ownership almost, not in a misogynistic, like, you're mine way and like a sweet, like, that's mine. I'm obsessed with that person. And I've been in more than one emotionally abusive relationship. I could talk about that all fucking day, but I also don't want to infringe on anyone's life or privacy. And look, I was not perfect either, and I will totally, totally admit that. I gave it right back. They were just no bueno for so many different reasons. Relationships that really took my sense of self. I never felt safe. And I don't mean physically. Physically, I was totally fine. But I never felt safe to just be myself and to speak freely and be proud and acknowledge any past I had without it defining me. And anything and everything I said could and would be used against me in this court of trying to prove that I was this like disloyal, horrible person. And then I started believing that myself as well. And I've been called things I'm not proud of. I've learned a lot from these relationships, though. I've been through a lot of therapy to undo the damage, and I really didn't want to bring it into my current relationship, which I sometimes catch myself. I'm definitely the more toxic one right now. I actually just started therapy up again because of just some other stuff that I'm struggling with. Again, it is my own problem and I am trying to take responsibility. And I think one lingering thing that I still deal with that I notice gives me a guttural reaction is when I feel like my autonomy is threatened. I said this earlier, autonomy makes me the horniest ever. And I think part of that is I've dated a lot of guys that try to take that autonomy away, try to control me, try to change me, try to almost like lessen my, I hate saying sparkle, but like, yeah, make me quieter, make me less of who I am, and just put me in like this little tiny box and like hide me away forever. And this has been the hardest thing for me about long distance. And I want to talk a little bit about long distance. I've talked about it briefly in past dating episodes, about like phone sex and how to keep it spicy and communication being so important and how to be really intentional with each other. And there's so many things that you can do. And honestly, I feel like my boyfriend and I fucking crush long distance. Like we are both so independent. We're both so happy. We trust each other so much. So we are golden there. But the hardest part of long distance that I feel like no one talks about is having to meld your lives together. And I'm 30, he's 31, and trying to figure out a way because we both love the lives that we've built. We've created these very different lives with different people and different priorities and in different locations. And now we're expected to figure out a way to put those two lives together in a way that makes both of us happy. And that is what I've had such a hard time with, is the idea of sacrifice and the idea of compromise. And people always say relationships are hard, they're compromised, la 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 la. I haven't really had to do anything hard, I'll be honest. I've just been living my life and I've been totally gravy with it. And I mean, the only hard thing is we miss each other, but like other than that, we're good. And this is the first time, now that we're talking about our future, no matter what happens, no matter what we do, and no matter where we live, one of us are going to be giving up a lot. And that's a really tough pill to swallow because it's very easy for me to allow him to make sacrifices. And then when the roles are reversed and it's kind of put on me, I have a really, really, really fucking hard time not being selfish. And I have a really hard time giving up anything about my life at all, like really budging at all. And I know that that's a me thing. And I know that that's a personal problem. And he is so patient with me and like so selfless. And like, if anything, inspires me to be a better girlfriend to him because of how amazing he is to me. But I just didn't realize that about myself. We were talking about selfishness earlier, and I think that it is so important. But I also said this earlier, too much of a good thing. I have lived such a selfish life that I am now having to undo that independence and figure out a way to come together with someone. And I am very thankful. My boyfriend is such an amazing communicator and he kind of will like check me. And that's something I think that I've learned in this very healthy relationship that I'm unlearning from the past is like him and I are not at war. There's no winning or losing and there's no battling. When we are fighting for like a common goal, which is like, how are we going to be happy and like live the best life together and choose the option that like makes the most sense for the both of us together. So we're just always on the same team. And again, that is something that he always has to remind me of because I'm always trying to secretly pit us against each other because I'm a fucking freak and get him to like pop off on me or attack me in a way that I'm kind of used to from the past. And I recognize these not good tendencies and unhealthy tendencies in myself. And luckily, he can kind of like bring me back. And now I'm back in therapy again. Thank fucking God, because I haven't been to therapy in like, I kind of goes to my therapist like 2 years ago. And she is already helping me so freaking much. But I'm also just so thankful for him like showing me what it's like to be such an amazing like partner to someone, because I know that I'm a good girlfriend and I know that like he knows that I love him, but I want to be better. And it's so nice being with someone that can teach me and show me versus like always being the one that's like the therapist, the mom, the punching bag, the teacher. That's how it's always been in the past. So yeah, long distance, that's definitely been the toughest part for me. It's not even the distance. It's how the fuck are we about to create our futures together? And here's the thing. I know it's all going to be amazing and I know it's going to be great because I'm with the person that I know without a shadow of a doubt from the tippy top of my head to the bottom of my feet that I'm supposed to be with. So it's just figuring out the how and letting the universe give us the best possible life because I'm the luckiest girl in the world. But these are all things I'm constantly having to remind myself, right? It's a practice. And these are some things that I've been struggling with. I have to be like, okay, just trust the process. It's going to be fucking fine. And going back, I'm like all over the place today. I just have so much to say. Going back to what I noticed about other people's relationships, that like pride and that security that I noticed in other people. There was this moment that really stuck out to me. I was at this wedding and it was right after I got out of my last relationship. And I was talking to this girl and I asked her which one her boyfriend was because we were talking about her boyfriend. And she pointed at him and she's like, it is that like sexy thing over there. Like, oh my God, I fucking love him. Baby, like, come here. And like called him over and like, they weren't being like mushy gushy or anything crazy. They were just being like funny. And she was like, just so proud to like claim him out of the crowd and point him out and be like, come here, I want you to meet this random girl and like introduce yourself because I'm so proud of you and I want you on my arm to like show you off. Like that was so pivotal to me. I don't even know this girl. I couldn't even tell you her name, but I was like, oh fuck, like I want that. Like I've never had that. I've never had someone be so proud to call me theirs. And I've never been super proud to call someone else mine just because of how poorly I've been treated. And that has been such a 180 now. Like I feel so proud to have my current boyfriend and like call him mine and like pick him out in a crowd and all the things. And I think that's been the really cool thing about my current relationship and just all the experiences that I've had with dating is when it's right, it is right and it feels right. And people always say that. And I was like, haha, LOL, yeah, whatever. But it really fucking is, unfortunately. And so proud to call him mine. And I feel so lucky. And speaking of therapy, we were talking the other day about values and fulfillment, like what fulfills myself and my boyfriend, because we're trying to figure out this future for ourselves and what works. And she was just saying, and I think this is an important message to share, that if you don't value the same things and if you are not fulfilled by similar things, you can have different hobbies, you can have different interests. But if you like to live your life differently, if you like to spend your money differently, if you like to spend your time completely differently, then you might want to reevaluate that relationship because your values and the bigger things that you want, the ambiguous things that you want for your future should line up. It shouldn't be this push and pull. It shouldn't be this huge fight. Like those basic things you should agree on. And I'm not even talking about things as specific as where you want to live. I'm talking about things as broad as like, what kind of life do we want to live? What sort of things make us happy? What brings us fulfillment? And how are we going to focus on those things? Is family something that's really important to us? Is religion? Is money and career? Is having kids ASAP Rocky? Is owning a massive fucking house? Like, what are your values? Is traveling something that's really important to you, or do you not give a fuck about that? Is being outside really important to you, or would you rather sit inside and play video games all day? Like, those are just big differences. And I think it's something that's really important to discuss beforehand to make sure that you guys are at least in alignment with the things that you both want to focus on together. And I thought that was just a really cool point. And with all of this and all the conversations I've been having lately, I've just been future tripping like fucking crazy. And I hate that because I am not a future tripper. I pride myself on being where I'm planted and like being super present. Because when we're thinking about where we want to live and what we want to do, of course, we're talking about kids because we both want to have a family. And I'm 30 years old. I will probably have kids in the next 5 years, which is so fucking insane to say out loud. I'm not even married yet, but like, I'm just sure that that's what's going to happen. I don't know. It's just crazy to think about. And I hate living in the future, but that's part of the conversation is, depending on where we live, are we going to have kids close to family? Are we going to have kids away from family? And I don't know if anyone else struggles with that because I do know a lot of people, like, when I lived in Denver and living somewhere like this, there's a lot of transplants. So at a certain age, a lot of people start moving back. But I also have a lot of friends that stay and choose the life where they want to live in a place that they love so much, and family is still very important to them, but they aren't living close to their family. And that's something that I really struggle with because I'm like, I can't really control that my parents decided to live in Huntsville, Alabama, which, like, no shade, but like, I'm not going to live in Huntsville, Alabama. Like, that's just not what would fulfill me. I think that is a life that I would need a vacation from, to be completely upfront and honest. And it's not, I didn't choose where my dad got a job when I was 3 years old that, moved us to Huntsville, Alabama. And it just feels unfair. And I feel like a little kid kicking my feet, but it feels unfair to uproot my life to be closer to my family. Like, why can't they move closer to me? Like, why can't I choose a life that I feel so fulfilled by and then just figure it out? And I was having a conversation with a friend that has kids, and she was like, look, I think no matter what, because I've been really thinking about this, like, do I want to build a life away from my family or close to my family, and what would I be giving up each way? And in the conversation about kids, she was like, if you have kids close to family with your parents down the street, that's all you know. So you are going to have that help from the beginning, and that is going to be your reality. And you probably cannot imagine a life where you do not have their help. Or if you have kids away from family and you just get a nanny and you rely on your community to help you out and your significant other, that's just the life you know. And you don't know what it's like to have family right down the street. And I thought that was really cool because I don't think I've ever seen myself, moving back to Alabama or having my family close unless I move out to Colorado. And it made me feel a lot better that, like, no matter what, I know that I'm going to be okay. And even on the subject of kids, I think it's so interesting, especially in your 30s, because so many of my friends are having kids right now. And I was talking to someone when I was traveling. She was like 37, I think, maybe, or 38. And she was just saying how, she's been traveling for a while and all of her friends are having kids. And she was kind of feeling down on herself. She hadn't met her person. And she was like, "Ugh, like, I probably need to have kids soon, blah, blah, blah." And it took her, like, traveling and getting out of her current reality to be like, "Wait, do I even wanna have kids? No." She never wanted to have kids, and she just thought she wanted to have kids because that's what everyone's doing. And I think that's such an important distinction, is sitting down. And I've thought about this too. I mean, I do wanna have a family, and it's perfectly okay to do, to go either way. But I've thought about that too. As women, we are so programmed, with baby dolls and playing house and not getting little kitchenette sets and having Barbies and all these things to be these, like, caretakers and be like moms. And we're always playing, like, yeah, like all these games that center around like family and motherhood, essentially. At least that's what I did growing up. And it's just interesting with everything that you consume. You're kind of molded to become a mother as a woman. And I think now people are starting to really question that role and be like, actually, I don't want to have kids. And look, I'm on the side of TikTok where it's like, we don't have kids and our life is fucking amazing and we're 32 and millionaires and, like, get to do all this shit and travel all the time. And I get it. Like, having kids is fucking hard. And I don't know why I want to have kids so badly, but for some reason I do. But I also understand why you wouldn't have kids. So I think that's a really important distinction when we're talking about the comparison, when we're talking about finding your person, when we're talking about this pressure that we put on ourselves, is, do we actually want this future? Do we actually want this reality? Or is this something that we think we want or that we are programmed to want based on our surroundings or based on what people tell me that I think I want? So, as you move into your 20s, as you move into your 30s, into your 40s, I think it's just good to think about what your priorities are, what your values are, what your fulfillment is. And then when you meet that partner, you guys can decide together, do we align on this? Do we not? And how are we going to move forward together? Okay. And the last thing in my dating portion, I wrote random red flags about your relationship. Number one, lack of trust that he has because he's been cheated on or has been slighted in the past and takes it out on you. It's not your problem. It's his problem. And from that, anxiety about going out together or going out of town and him starting a fight or not trusting you or wanting to go through your phone or track your location or whatever it is. A reminder that it is not your fucking problem. Whatever a guy or a girl went through before they met you, they got to handle that. They can figure that out. You can be there for them and you can aid them in that journey and, like, be their partner in life and, help them through it in a way. But if it's affecting you and this person is projecting their past shit on you, fucking kick them to the curb. Enough, because that is such a red flag. And I've had some experience with that and it is not fun at all. Number two, the worst thing a girl can ever say about her boyfriend is, but when it's good, it's so good. Like, no, that actually means it's really fucking bad. That means you are in love with the potential of the person, that you are not in love with the current person in front of you. And when things are good, you're probably anxious and waiting for it to get bad again. And when you're in situations that could be triggering for your partner when they've maybe been mad at you in the past, you get anxious. So you're really in this like weird anxious cycle all the fucking time. And I think if you're not in love with who he actually is, right in front of you without having to fix him, without having to change him. I mean, you can change his style and like his taste in music, but not the fundamentals about who he is as a person. And he's wrong for you, sister. That's not your person. You have to love the person that is right in front of you, and you guys can grow together, become better versions of yourself, but they are not going to change fundamentally. Unfortunately, you just have to accept them for who they are. And if they're shitty, then also kick them to the curb. Okay, this is a green flag or a red flag, depending on how they handle it. I noticed this recently when I was traveling. What I love is when you meet a guy, when you're out, when you're traveling, whatever, and you're chatting with him and having a good conversation, and he very casually will say, maybe you guys are talking about Italy. Oh, yeah, my girlfriend and I went to Italy last year and it was so much fun. It's not like, hey, whoa, don't talk to me. I have a girlfriend. Stop right there. It's just very casual. Oh, you're in sales? My girlfriend's dad owns a company in sales. I don't fucking know. Just very casually putting that line in the sand. I will immediately trust that man with my life. I think that is the hottest fucking thing, is a guy in a situation that he does not need to. I will never meet his girlfriend and I will probably never see him again. Drawing that line and saying, no, just so you know, we can chit chat, we can have fun. I'll even buy you a drink. But this is not sexual. I have a girlfriend and I love her. And I just think that is so cute. And on the opposite end, I've also met guys this happened to me when I was in Vietnam. I was talking to this group of guys, or like this group, and I was talking to these two guys, and we were talking la 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 la, and we talked for forever. And there were so many opportunities where he could have brought up his girlfriend just casually, and he never did. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I say I have a boyfriend, this guy's like, oh my gosh, yeah. And then starts talking about his girlfriend because I don't know if it's because he realizes he's not going to hook up with me now. I don't know if it's because he feels like confident enough to say it, but I just think it is so fucking hot when a guy just casually brings up his girlfriend, and that's it. But if he does not bring you up in conversation, he doesn't love you, babe, and he's probably going to cheat on you. No, not really, but also maybe. Then the last red flag, and I guess this is only if you are of a certain political affiliation. I think politics have gotten so divisive and so scary and so personal that you have to be aligned in politics. Even if one of you are more conservative and one of you are more liberal, if you are not agreeing on key issues about human rights and things that are important to you, or bodily autonomy, or whatever you are passionate about, and that person isn't open-minded enough to hear you out, or even better, agree with you and be on the same side as you, I think that's a red flag too. And I mean, for me, I could never, ever, 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 ever be with someone that likes Trump, that voted for Trump, that supports anything about him, because he is so fundamentally a fucking piece of shit to me. And I feel so disgusted by him as a person, by his policies, and how he makes minorities feel, and the rulings that he's made, and with everything happening with ICE. And I could never be with someone that thinks any of those things are very casual or okay. And I also have friends who, during the election had a hard time because their husbands or their boyfriends were voting for Trump, and it really upset them. And I think that you have every right to be upset. If you are sitting there having a conversation with your significant other and they are not taking you seriously, or they are not understanding where you're coming from because they are a white man that has never been in a minority in their fucking life, then I think that's a huge issue. I think that that means that they cannot hear other sides. I think that they cannot be open-minded, and I think that they're somewhat brainwashed. Sure, I don't understand the economy to its extent. So like being middle of the road and like trying to understand that perspective from all sides. Sure, but like if you can't denounce Trump and like say that he's a shitty person, if you feel that he is a shitty person and you feel uncomfortable and unsafe by him being president or by some of the things that he's decided, and your partner is not like sticking up for you, then like fuck that guy. That's not okay at all to me. And I don't think that's dramatic at all to feel that way. And to round it out, I really wanted to talk about dating as it pertains to what I'm going through currently. I've done so many episodes on I did one like dating 101 where I give so much advice about how to date. I did multiple episodes about sex and where I asked all my guy friends their opinions about sex. I did an episode, and that was one of our first ones, and our most popular, Boys Lie and Hot Girls Cry, which is all about rejection and validity in that, and in that experience, and loneliness, and holding space for being emotional after even like a situationship or something ends after a very brief time. So if you want more advice or just guidance in that space, I would definitely go back and listen to those episodes because that will give you a more authentic read on that whole room when I was going through that time. And they're really great episodes if I do say so myself. And the last portion, my phone just gave me the 20% low battery sign. So we'll try to wrap this up. Q&A portion. Let's see. A lot of these questions I've already answered. Easy conflict resolution for roommates. I think this is as simple as expectations are the death of all relationships and friendships. If you have unclear and uncommunicated expectations on your roommates, for example, if you expect them to empty the dishwasher or you expect someone to take out the trash or you feel like, because so much of this stems from like unequal give and take in these situations, if you expect someone to do something and they don't do that thing that you want them to do that you're silently trying to like telepathically tell them, and then they, guess what, don't do that thing, and then you resent them, then there's this whole cycle of negativity. I would really try to just communicate everything that you need. If you need to make a chore chart, whatever it is, with your roommates and like what your boundaries are too, because then it just like, we're good. We now have communicated that. And if they cross that boundary or if they are still disrespectful to that boundary, then having a conversation with them, I know that that's uncomfortable, but confrontation is what you have to do or you're going to be miserable and just like silent in, those situations. And I think communication is the root of all problem solving. Coming back to the question of easy conflict resolution, I don't know if there's like an easy way to do it. You just kind of have to like face it head on and be like, hey, look, like this really bothered me when you did this. This really bothered me when you said that. Or, hey, you've been acting like kind of off towards me. Is there anything that I did that offended you? And just coming at it in a very kind way to try to start a conversation so that you can just squash it instead of it turning into this whole thing, because girls can be so like micro aggressive towards each other and it can be really hard to live with. I think passive aggressiveness is like the worst trait of all time. So that would be my advice, is just to not have unspoken expectations and to talk everything through with your girls. This is actually my question that I put in and I was curious about it and I put it on TikTok, and it's, can girls and guys be just friends? And I have had so many and still do have so many best guy friends that I used to like sleep in the same bed with. We would never like hook up or anything, but like I'm like so close with them that like we'd be in each other's weddings. And I was always such a proponent of like, yes, they can just be friends. And I think I'm a good example of that. And I put it on TikTok and everyone's like, no, they can't be friends. No, they can't be friends. Someone actually commented on the TikTok that you can only have a girl and guy that are friends if one of them is ugly, which I thought was fucking hilarious. And I asked my boyfriend about it and he was like, honestly, no, because even if the girl thinks that you guys are just friends and like doesn't want anything to do with him and is friends with them, the guy probably thinks either number one, that he would hook up with you if you gave him the option, or just that like in the back of his mind, he's like, yeah, I could hook up with her. Like I could definitely like, she would totally hook up with me. And that's just the difference between girls and guys. So he was like, that doesn't necessarily mean that, you guys would ever hook up or that anything would ever happen, but I guarantee you that's been a thought in their mind at some point. Whereas women, like, I feel like we just put people in friend zones sometimes and we just don't think about it like that. So I still think girls and guys can be just friends, but I don't know. Someone said, bridesmaid guide, I'm getting to that time in my life and it's scary. Yeah. Yeah, it's really fucking scary. I don't know if I have advice for this other than buckle the fuck up, start a savings account ASAP, because I've spent tens of thousands of dollars being a bridesmaid. And, it gets to the point where you really start to resent it. And there are some friends whose weddings that I've been in that have been total bridezillas that have asked insane things. And I'm really, really hoping, because I'm still in the thralls of being a bridesmaid, but it's definitely gotten a lot more chill. And I'm hoping that the pendulum, it always swings to the extremes. I'm hoping it is swinging back to just a more like moderate amount of asks from the bridesmaids, rather than just being expected to spend like 4 or 5 grand on the bachelorette, the lingerie showers, the bridesmaids dresses, the events, the wedding gifts, like everything. It's absolutely absurd, I think, what people are asking. And I understand that it's your wedding and it's so special, but babe, it's your wedding. It's not ours. And as a bride, one day when I'm a bride, I will never, ever, 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 ever fucking ask half of the shit that I've been asked to do. And I mean, to my best friends, like, I'm so happy to be a part of your day and I'm so happy to be in your wedding. There's definitely been some people that I'm like, bro, why the fuck am I here? And there's also been some people that I'm like, really? Like, you're really going to ask us to do that or buy that, or I don't know, whatever. It's this weird line of like, you're so happy to support and celebrate your friends, but it's also okay to say no to things. I don't know if it's socially acceptable to say no when someone asks you to be a bridesmaid. I don't think I've ever been asked to be a bridesmaid where I've wanted to say no, but there have been times where I've been asked to go on a bachelorette to weddings that I am not in, to which I will never go. I always say no. And honestly, if I'm not in a wedding, I'll rarely go to that either because I have so many weddings. Like, this is my first year that I've had one wedding. Next year, I have 7 weddings. Last year, I had 8 weddings. The year before, I had 7 weddings. Like, I am 27 dresses in real life. And I only say yes to like half the weddings that I get invited to. So you have to just like have your boundaries, find your peace, and it's okay to say no to things. If you can't afford to go on a bachelorette or you can't afford to do something that you're being asked to do, or it's like absolutely an insane ask, don't fucking do it. You can say no. It is okay. And if someone asks you to go on a bachelorette and you're not in the wedding, don't feel obligated to say yes. You can absolutely say no to that too because you're not in the wedding. Sorry. And then as far as like actual bridesmaid guide, yeah, I really don't know. I don't really know if I have advice for anyone. I feel like I've lost, years off my life from being a bridesmaid so many times and doing the whole bachelorette thing. I would say maybe try not to be a cynic about it like me. Try to like soak it in and like soak it up and be happy about it and be excited. And if you get asked to be in as many weddings as I have, then you may turn to cynicism. But I would just try, and this is what I do when I'm in the situation. I just like put my good friend cap on and I'm like, I'm here to celebrate this girl. I'm here to be a part of her wedding and a part of her super special day. And I like want her to feel special. And at the end of the day, she asked me to do this because she loves me and she wants me to be a part of it. And I think that is such a beautiful part about weddings, and the actual love being celebrated is so beautiful. I think what's not beautiful is like how insane the wedding industry has gotten. That's where I'm like, enough is enough, guys. We don't need to, be having $3,000 bachelorettes. Like, this is just getting kind of crazy. So yeah, I really don't have any advice there, but fucking buckle up and good luck is all I have to say. And I hope that the industry starts to change for you, because in the last couple of years, as a bridesmaid, I have been able to wear whatever dress I want, which that has been very, very nice. And I really appreciate that trend. What do you do when you feel stagnant in life? This is going to be a super simple answer. I change something. If there's something that I don't like in my life, if I'm feeling miserable or I'm feeling depressed, I change something. I move. I go through the motions of things that I know make me feel good, even if I am feeling depressed or feeling really low. I change my surroundings. I change the people I'm hanging out with. I put myself out there and go on dates. I book a plane ticket and travel. If I'm feeling stuck in any way, I just change and flip the script or start a new hobby or just do something completely different than what I'm doing. I journal a lot. I really try to get to the root of why I feel stagnant and what is not serving me anymore. And I just try to tap into that selfishness and choose myself and try to find a new alternative and a new avenue for myself. And that comes back to free will, dude. You are never, ever, 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 ever stuck. You can always change your circumstances. You can always change your surroundings if you have the means. And I think that's just a really important thing to remember, that social constructs and norms do not control how we live our life, and we can live our life however we so please. How do you curate your room or apartment? Random, but struggling with decorating and picking one vibe. I'm really bad about that too. I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see around me, my room is fucking chaotic. But in the vein of living with roommates all the time, it's always been really imperative for me to curate my space to feel like a cozy, safe space that I love and that I like can retreat to when I want alone time. So I don't know if you need to like necessarily pick a certain style. Pinterest is my best friend. I would play around on Pinterest and see if you can find something that really stands out to you. Pick that as your focus. Like, usually I'll pick like these pillows I found at Anthropology, if you're watching, and I saw them and I was like, oh, I love these. So I decided to build my bedding around these pillows and pull colors. And that's how I decided on jewel tones for my room. And I have like all golds, blacks, burnt oranges, deep greens, and I built it from pillows. So if you pick one thing that you're obsessed with, then you can kind of just build your space around that. But I don't think that's silly or random. I think it's super important to curate your space. Someone asked, is questioning your relationship normal, or do I have anxiety? Let me know. I do not have anxiety, unfortunately, so I can't totally speak to that. I think if you're questioning your relationship or you're feeling anxious about your relationship, it's probably not right for you. I can, of course, only speak from personal experience, but anytime I felt anxious about a relationship, it's been the wrong one. If I feel anxiety about other things in my life and my boyfriend can like help me through those things or can like talk me through things, I think if you're feeling anxious maybe about like certain aspects of your relationship or your future, that's something you should talk to that person about. and just like get right to the source. But I think if you're anxious about your partnership as a whole and your relationship as a whole, that's where it would be a problem. And that's where you should maybe think about ending it and trying something else because, yeah, I think that's just your gut kind of speaking to you and your intuition. And we are such intuitive beings. So the more you choose to listen to that inner knowing and that inner voice, the more you can make decisions that align with you. Someone asked, trusting things will all work out, question mark, like how? I kind of touched on this earlier because this is something that I still struggle with, even though it's something I wholeheartedly believe. It is a muscle. You just have to continue to practice to like put your life in the universe or God or whoever's hands and just trust that you're going to live the best life possible. Make yourself delusional. I am the luckiest girl in the world. Everything that happens to me is happening for me. I am living the best life possible. I will live the best life possible and live the best life that I could even fathom, like beyond my wildest dreams, and like repeating those to yourselves and just living in your little delulu world and just practicing that over and over again. You will at some point just believe that that is the case. And I think that's the only way to do it is just curating this little universe around your life. I touched on this. She said, I'm 31 and in no rush to have kids, be an adult, etc. Any pep talks for that? This just comes back to comparison and in believing in your own journey and like owning your own journey. Like that's fucking awesome that you're 31 and in no rush to have kids or be a quote unquote adult. Like I'm still a kid too. You do not have to grow up. And I also don't think you have to grow up when you have kids. I think you do whatever makes sense for you and in your own timing. And if you're not ready to live that part of your life yet, then yeah, fucking be proud of it. There are going to be so many people that wish that they had waited instead of having kids when they were 22 years old. Like you are fucking living and what a cool thing that is. And maybe you don't even want to have kids. Maybe you don't even want to have a family. Maybe this is how you want to live your life. And what a beautiful life that is. I think just not getting down on yourself, not comparing yourself to other people, because those people are also probably comparing themselves to other people. And if you really dig deep and think about the things that you want and the things that you don't want, then you are doing the right thing. You just said it. You said, I don't want kids yet. I'm not in a rush. Like, good. Then don't be. Live your truth, be yourself, and be proud of that. Okay, yeah, I'm looking at the rest of these questions and I feel like I've already answered them and my phone's gonna die and I need to shut the fuck up already. So we are gonna end the podcast here. Season 3 finale. Happy third birthday to me. Thank you guys so much for listening. This was so much fun. I love giving my 2 cents and giving my solicited advice. This was not unsolicited because I was actually asked this time. Even though regardless, I am gonna continue to yap away and talk for anyone or no one to listen. But thank you guys so much. This has been such an amazing season 3, and I'm really excited to take some time off, reflect, move through life, go through all of these transitions that life is throwing at me that I am trying to figure out in real time, and come back even better and stronger and the best podcaster I can be, and just be super amped to come back and chat with you guys. But I so appreciate you guys for everything. I don't want to give like a whole farewell speech because this podcast is not over and that would be so dramatic. So let's just end it like we always end it. Thank you guys so much. If this is your first time listening, I hope you stick around. We will start dropping new episodes again every single Thursday, anywhere you get your podcasts in the next couple months. And in the meantime, we have so many banked episodes, like almost 200, I think at this point. You could go back and listen to at your convenience, anywhere you get your podcast. You could subscribe to us. You can get updates on all the things. And if you love us as much as we love you while we're on this break, leave us a review. I will kiss you on the mouth, whether you like it or not. That would help us so much as we continue to grow and reach new audiences. And I'm always looking for more internet friends and more raw intentions, girls and possibly guys. I don't know if any guys listen to this podcast, but if you do, hey, what's up? But that's all I have for y'all this week. You can follow us at Raw Intentions Podcast. You can follow me on my personal account at Sarah R. Smith, Sarah with an H, Smith with a Y, or raw_rebellious to keep up with all the things while I'm taking a few months off because I will still be very active on just about everything else. And that's a wrap. Thank you guys so much. I love you. Have a great weekend, and I will catch up with you guys in a few months. See ya.